Hey, my name is Matt. Welcome to the Marquee Garage. So this is my next video in my series of Harley-Davidson Dyna videos. Last time you guys commented that you wanted to see some expanded content in terms of not just limited to 99 to 05 early model bikes. So I did a little bit of research and I expanded my search on how to do a dual disc swap for 91 to 2017 when they discontinued the Dyna. So we'll jump right into it. So how to do a dual disc conversion. So the first part you're gonna need is the slider. Most bikes, if you're gonna do this, you only have a brake on the left-hand side, so you need a right-hand slider. Depending on what model year you have, you're gonna need a variety of different part numbers, and we'll go over with exactly what right-hand slider you're gonna need based on what year. So we'll start from the first Dyna. So 91 to 99. That's gonna be your 3/4 inch taper Timken with a 3/4 inch axle. That's gonna be what dictates which slider you need. But the part number for that's gonna be 45922-87. I'll put all this in the description and I'll also try to hang it in the video for your reference. Next, so this is what I know best and this is what is gonna be shown in the video. My bike's an 01, so 2000 to 2003, that's gonna be a 3/4 inch straight sealed Timken. The part number for that's going to be 4592200 for 2000 and 2003 for a 3/4 inch axle. So the next one, 0405. So what changed in 04 is that Harley-Davidson went from a 3/4 inch front axle on the Dyna to a 1 inch front axle on the Dyna. So you're going to need a different fork slider with a larger hole to fit the larger axle. This is still 39 millimeter. So 0405, this is going to be difficult because they never made a factory dampening rod style dual disc model. So it's all going to be an aftermarket kit from Harley. The kit part number is 44531-04. The slider itself is going to be 46077-04. So that's going to be a 39 millimeter fork with a 1 inch axle, which is a good transition to the next year range, which is 0607. 0607 still had the 1 inch axle, but went to a 49 millimeter fork. So it changes again. So if you have an 0607, you're gonna need a different fork slider, which is gonna be part number 46505-01. That's the part number for a V-rod right-hand lower leg. I'm not sure what the finish is on the V-rod stuff. It could be the same brushed finish that you're gonna get on most of the Dynas, or it might be powder coated. I'm not too familiar with these later 06 and newer bikes. Had to do a little bit of research, and the 0607 is definitely gonna be the one with the least amount of information because it was only a 2-year deal. Moving on to what is going to be more common in terms of the later model bikes. This is going to be from 08 to 2017. It's still a 49 millimeter fork like the 0607s, but it's going to be a 25 millimeter axle. So that's the change there. It's a different axle diameter. What you're going to be looking for on this is you're going to need the right hand slider from a late model 103 2014 to 2017 FXDL Dyna lowrider. They changed the part number format around this time frame, but the part number is going to be 455-00230, and that's going to be the slider for a later model 08 to 17 bike. It's like a Street Bob or a Super Glide. All right, so that's going to get you covered on the slider. Now, this is going to be the same across the board. Basically, for this swap, you're going to be going to the 2008 and newer bagger style touring model 08 and newer made by Brembo. They're really good brakes. It's a huge upgrade. You're going to want those calipers. They made them in black and chrome. For the purposes of this video, I'm just going to give you the part number for the black. Left caliper is going to be 43027-08. And then the right hand is going to be 44023-08. You're also going to need 2 bleeders. The bleeders, sometimes if you buy them used, they'll come with the bleeder. But if you're buying brand new, which I wouldn't recommend because it's super expensive. Definitely buy used. You want to make sure you get the bleeders. You're gonna need 2 of them. That part number is 41783-08. All right, now, in order to mount the calipers on a 2000 to 2017 bike, it's gonna be a direct bolt-in for the most part. The caliper will bolt right up to the leg. You're just gonna need to get 2 of the shorter bolts in order to make this work. The part number for that is 44160-00. You need at least 2. I got 4 just so you have all new fresh hardware. It looks better. So you need 4 of those bolts to mount them to a 2000 to 2017. If you have an early bike, a 91 to 99, you're gonna need an adapter bracket that will adapt your lower leg on both sides to the 2008 and newer touring Brembo caliper. Ramjet Racing sells those. They're kind of expensive, so it's definitely an added cost if you have a 91 to 99 bike. Okay, last thing down at the wheel is gonna be the rotors. So if you have an early bike, 91 to 05, you're gonna have an 11.5 inch rotor. One of the parts that's an upgrade in this whole setup is that you go to an 11.8 inch rotor, so it's slightly larger. So you're gonna need to find the larger size rotors. The problem is on the early bikes, you're not gonna be able to use a stock touring rotor because a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, all the time, the stock rotors do not have a recessed, they're not countersunk for the bolt. This is critical on the early models because it's narrow. You can see that the clearance is very tight between the bolt and the fork slider. And if it's not countersunk, you're gonna have clearance issues and the bolt is gonna rub on the slider. So the factory rotors that are not countersunk will not work. So you need an aftermarket rotor that's 11.8 inches. There are factory rotors, but are like factory aftermarket rotors that are 11.8 inches, which is what these are. These are the turbine style rotor. So that'll get you covered. If you have a 49 millimeter, so 2006 and up, you can run the factory touring rotors. You can run those the rotors that you get right off the touring model because the spread of the forks is wider with the 49 millimeter front end. You can run one of the swirly looking factory style bagger rotors. That'll work for you. The part numbers for those, for the later bikes, the rotors can be 41808-08 alpha, and then 41809-08 alpha. Those are the stock rotors. Again, only an 06 up 49 mil Dyna can run those factory rotors unless you want to have them machined, which is going to be an additional cost. Okay, we're finished up down here. We'll now move up to the top. So arguably one of the biggest upgrades, or one of the reasons that this is such a big upgrade, is that you are going to a much more powerful master cylinder. Like the calipers, the master is made by Brembo. It's significantly a more powerful master than even the early 11/16 master from like an FXDX or an FXDXT. So that's a big upgrade. It's a great master. So the part number for that, the master assembly, the part number is gonna be 44551-08 alpha. That's the assembly. I don't think that comes with the perch. If you buy it used, it usually comes as a unit, but if you're buying new, which again, like everything else, I would recommend just buying used. The part number for the clamp is gonna be 45138-08 alpha. One thing to note on the fitment with the master and the hand controls, it all bolts right on. There's no adapting needed. This will go. Your factory right hand hand control will work with the master. It'll work with the factory brake light switch. It all goes together very nicely. That's why I would recommend just using the factory touring master cylinder over going to something like an RCS 19, like a really fancy high-end Brembo one. You can do that, but you're gonna get more difficult in terms of mounting a mirror, the brake light switch, all that. This all is plug and play, super easy. The brake light switch works, your mirror mounts, everything works super easily. You can run blinkers, everything, factory that you want to run on the street. And then moving again from top to bottom, you're going to need brake lines. There's two different styles. You can run the one like I'm running where it comes down, comes to a junction, and then splits. That's the style I ended up going with. Or you can run a different style that is two complete lines all the way from the top all the way down. Some people say that style is better, that you have better, more even braking and better brake power. I chose to go with this. That kind of choice is up to you. You're going to need a dual line, like I was saying. Basically, what you want to look up is something that's going to fit an early model FXDX. You can use a 2002 FXDX part number. The basis part number, they no longer make this part. It's been discontinued, but the basis part number is going to be 45194-99 Alpha. I bought these from Magnum Shielding. It's their chromite line. They look really good. Obviously, this style brake line for an 02 FXDX should work for all bikes 91 through 2017, because the ends that you're worried about is whether it mates to the caliper and then it mates to the master, which those are the newer ones off the Touring. It obviously mates with both, so those are the two ends that you need to match up. So that should work with any bike 91 to 2017. All right, so we talked about the different parts you're gonna need to do this swap on your Harley-Davidson Dyna. Now we're gonna talk about the steps on how to actually perform this modification to your bike. Mine, again, is obviously a 2001, but the steps are pretty much the same across the board. So first, what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna remove your front fender. Get the front fender out of there so you don't damage the paint. Once you have the front fender removed, you're gonna wanna remove the entire brake assembly. Remove it from top to bottom. You're gonna wanna unbolt the master cylinder up at the top. You're gonna wanna unbolt the brake line holder underneath the triple trees, and then you're gonna wanna unbolt the caliper from the lower leg. With all that as one unit, you don't have to drain the brake fluid, you don't have to bleed the brakes, you don't have to do anything. All you gotta do is unbolt it and remove it. Once you have the whole front brake assembly removed, then you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna remove the front wheel. You're gonna unloosen the nut, you're gonna pull the axle out, and then you're gonna remove the front wheel. Once the front wheel's out of the way, you can proceed with removing the right-hand fork slider. At a minimum, that's what you need to do, is remove the right-hand fork slider. Really, the right thing you should do is drain the fluid in both of your fork sliders. At least do a basic rebuild on your suspension. At the very most, you probably want to go ahead and drop some Racetech Gold valves in. That's what I did. It's a good time to do this. They're a huge upgrade. They definitely make the suspension a lot better on your Dyna. Once you have the front slider removed, you can then start performing the process in reverse. You already have a brake on the left-hand side, so you only need to add the slider on the right-hand side like we talked about. So install the new right-hand slider and perform any suspension upgrades you want to do at that time. And then once you have the right-hand fork slider on, you're going to reassemble the wheel, the axle in reverse, bolt that all back together, and then you're going to start installing your new parts. You're going to start installing the new Brembo Touring calipers. You're going to put those on. You're going to use the shorter bolts. You'll install those, and then with everything removed up top, you're going to go ahead and you're going to install your new Touring master. You'll have to swap over your mirror. You'll have to swap over any turn signal you have on the right-hand side of the motorcycle at this time as well. Once you have the caliper in place with the brake pads, all that, you got the master hung up on the bars, then you're going to run your brake lines. Once the brake line is installed, you can then open up your master cylinder and fill it up with whatever brake fluid you want to use. Once you have your brake fluid filled up, you're going to need to bleed the brakes. You're going to want to bleed the brakes a couple times on both sides. You're going to need to do one side at a time. you should do the side that's further away from the master first, then you'll rotate to the right-hand side that's closer to the master, and then you'll alternate back and forth several times until you don't see any air bubbles coming out of the brake fluid. Once there's no air bubbles coming out, you know you've bled everything from the system, it's good to go, then you're ready to cap everything off and you're ready to test drive the bike. So in conclusion, we talked about everything you're gonna need to do a dual disc swap with 2008 and newer bagger Brembos on your 91 to 2017 Dyna. All the part numbers listed by year, and then we also went over all the steps to perform this upgrade on your motorcycle. While you're doing this, again, I can't stress enough the importance of going through and upgrading your suspension while you're in there. When you're done, you're gonna end up with a bike that handles great and brakes amazing. You're definitely gonna be happy with this upgrade. I know it's one of the best upgrades that I've done to this motorcycle and the one that I've noticed the biggest difference on afterwards. So I highly recommend doing this kind of no matter what your riding style it is. Again, I've included all the part numbers in the description, and I've included everything you're gonna need to do this upgrade. Like and subscribe for more Harley-Davidson content and more projects that I'm working on in the garage. Thanks.